New footage just dropped and it shows Blacc Sam and Snoop Dogg in serious tension. But this isn't the only confrontation Blacc Sam's been involved in.
Disrespect, bro, when you in that prison, bro. You better smack.
So, what is Blacc Sam this fired up? It all ties back to Nippy's death. Let's get into it. The shocking confrontation. The wild situation between Blacc Sam and Snoop Dogg caught everyone off guard. But before we break that down, let's start with what really kicked things off. The incident at Marathon Burger. Alright, so peep this. On April 17th, 2025, this footage started making rounds showing Blacc Sam at the grand opening of Marathon Burger, a business venture continuing.
Demonstrate for hustle. This is what I'm telling you. Don't come over here. Don't come over here trying to do. Then guess what? Go do something and come back.
According to sources who were at the event, Blacc Sam made it crystal clear that anyone who wasn't taking action against those disrespecting Nip's name and
disrespect, bro, when you in that prison, bro. You better smack.
This wasn't just some random outburst either. Word on the street is that Blacc Sam was essentially going off on Rockstar 2800, who's been linked to music executive Wack 100. It's not news that there's beef between Wack 100 and Blacc Sam since Nippy's death, and Wack has been talking smack about Nippy ever since. The footage shows Sam looking mad serious, standing on business for his brother's legacy. Now, here's where things get spicy. There's deeper reasons why Sam was so heated, and it all connects back to Snoop Dogg through this whole complicated web of loyalty, respect, and street politics. Aside from Wack 100 talking smack about Nippy, Blacc Sam also appears to have beef with the former due to his affiliation with Snoop Dogg. And this has to do with something most casual fans might not know about. It all started from a situation involving Big U, also known as Eugene Henley. For those who ain't hip, Big U is a major figure in LA's gang culture and music scene with connections to both Nippy and Snoop. According to multiple sources, Big U and his associates allegedly had a confrontation with Nippy over a track back in the day. In the streets of LA, loyalty is everything. And from Sam's perspective, anyone still rolling with people who allegedly disrespected his brother can't be trusted. Clearly, Blacc Sam seems to feel that Snoop's ongoing relationship with Big U shows a lack of respect for Nippy's memory. But that's not the only reason why there's tension between these two West Coast figures. This beef got layers on layers, and we need to peel them all back to understand what's really going down. Some OGs from the hip-hop scene been pointing to historical beef that dates back to the death row era. Y'all remember that intense East Coast, West Coast rivalry that defined 90s hip-hop, right? Well, apparently some of those old wounds still ain't healed. Suge Knight, the former CEO of Death Row Records, stated in interviews that Tupac tried to fight Snoop Dogg over what he saw as disloyalty. According to Knight, Tupac was heated after hearing a radio interview where Snoop showed love to Biggie Smalls and Diddy, the East Coast rivals during that era. This apparently led to a confrontation at a hotel where Tupac ran into Snoop's room, ready to throw hands.
In terms of intention, Pac was a street dude,
right?
And he represented thug life on the surface, right? But you get into the message and his direction, he was really a revolutionary and trying to lead people.
Given this connection, it makes sense that Blacc Sam would share that same reverence for Tupac and view Snoop's perceived disloyalty as disrespectful to both Tupac and Nippy's legacies. But wait, there's more to this story. Napoleon, a member of Tupac's group, The Outlaws, has publicly criticized Snoop for using false praise to sneak diss Tupac. In his words, Snoop and others acted like they were showing love to Tupac, but were actually putting him down, suggesting there was jealousy involved. Napoleon even
view an individual who's the top artist, and then all of a sudden another dude come and take your shine. He's very outspoken, and he's charismatic, he's making hits, he's doing movies, and he taking away your shine. I can see so.
And the plot thickens after Tupac's murder in 1996. Snoop's continued association with Diddy was seen by many West Coast loyalists as further evidence of his disloyalty. In the eyes of hardcore West Coast supporters like Blacc Sam, this kind of flip-flopping looks mad suspect. Now, let's fast forward to more recent events. Snoop has been involved in several controversies lately that might have further damaged his relationship with Blacc Sam. Most notably, Snoop performed at a Trump inauguration party in January 2025, which caused massive backlash from fans who remembered his earlier anti-Trump stance. This kind of political flip-flop might seem unrelated to Nippy's legacy, but remember, Nippy was all about authenticity and community loyalty. Blacc Sam, who emphasizes those same values, might view such actions as inconsistent with what his brother stood for. There's also been situations where Snoop has faced legal issues for posting viral content without permission, like that 2021 lawsuit over a protester video on Instagram. The content of the beef is definitely real, and the footage shows genuine tension because the beef between Blacc Sam and Snoop Dogg represents something deeper than just two individuals having issues with each other. It's about loyalty, authenticity, and honoring legacies in hip-hop culture. And to fully understand what's going on, we need to dig even deeper into the history between these figures and what led to this current situation. In fact, here's where things get even more interesting, because Blacc Sam and Snoop actually had a positive relationship at one point. Back in 2020, Blacc Sam surprised Snoop with a care package from the Marathon Clothing, including a marijuana strain called Uncle Sam OG. Snoop even posted about it on Instagram, referring to Blacc Sam as my nephew and showing mad love. So, what changed between then and now? What caused this relationship to sour to the point where Blacc Sam is publicly displaying his lack of respect for Snoop? The East Coast-West Coast rivalry wasn't just about music. It was about loyalty, territory, and respect. And at the center of the West Coast movement were Death Row Records, Suge Knight, Tupac, and yes, Snoop Dogg. Now, Snoop came up as Dr. Dre's protege and was one of the first artists to blow up on Death Row. His debut album, Doggy Style, changed the game and sold over 35 million copies worldwide, making him a superstar almost overnight. But when Tupac joined Death Row after getting out of prison, the dynamic shifted. Tupac came in with an intensity that couldn't be matched. He was dropping hit after hit, becoming the face of Death Row and taking the beef with Bad Boy Records and the East Coast to new heights. During this time, according to multiple sources, tensions began to brew between Tupac and Snoop. According to Suge Knight, the real drama popped off after Snoop did a radio interview showing love to Big.
Snoop knew one thing. Once it was over, I don't care how many songs you did with Pac. I don't care how many times you talked real bad about Biggie. You came and stabbed Pac in the back, and Pac was not gonna stop.
Knight detailed in interviews how Tupac was listening to Snoop's interview and got so heated that he ran into Snoop's hotel room ready to throw hands. For Tupac, loyalty wasn't negotiable. You couldn't claim to be Death Row and then show love to the opposition. This fundamental difference in how they moved is what started the rift between these two West Coast legends. There was another incident that added fuel to the fire. While Snoop was in New York filming the video for New York, New York, he and his crew were allegedly shot at, an incident that some believe was ordered by Biggie. This should have solidified Snoop's loyalty to the West Coast cause, but according to some sources, it had the opposite effect. Rather than doubling down on the beef, Snoop started to distance himself from the conflict.
Give me a blanket, grab me a knife and a fork, put the blanket over my nose right here, my little black glasses on, and ride like this the whole flight. Hoping one of them come with me so I can stab at everybody on this mother.
Though Knight disputed this claim, saying Snoop never got on the plane.
The story illustrates the level of tension that existed between them. The last interaction between Snoop and Tupac supposedly happened when Snoop asked about going to Las Vegas for the Mike Tyson fight, and according to accounts, Tupac brushed him off, making that the last time Snoop saw him alive before Tupac was shot in Las Vegas and passed away days later from his injuries. After Tupac's death, many expected Snoop to carry the torch for Death Row and continue the West Coast legacy that Tupac had been so passionate about. But instead, Snoop eventually left Death Row Records and began collaborating with East Coast artists, including Diddy, the very figure at the center of the beef with Tupac. For diehard West Coast loyalists, this move confirmed what they had suspected all along: Snoop's loyalty was flexible. Napoleon from the Outlaws didn't mince words when he accused Snoop of using praise as a way to sneak diss Tupac, claiming that Snoop and others would say positive things about Tupac publicly while subtly putting him down, suggesting there was jealousy behind their words. In another interview, Napoleon directly stated that Snoop Dogg was jealous of Tupac's success on death row, adding another layer to the narrative of disloyalty. Now, fast forward to Nipsey Hussle, who emerged as a powerful voice in West Coast hip-hop in the 2000s, and for Nippy, Tupac wasn't just an influence, he was a blueprint. Nippy's album Victory Lap and entrepreneurial ventures like the $100 mixtape Crenshaw echoed Tupac's themes of resilience and community empowerment. He was carrying on Tupac's legacy in a new era, and his brother Blacc Sam was right there with him, supporting this vision every step of the way. Despite the historical tensions between Snoop and Tupac, Snoop and Nippy did collaborate and showed mutual respect. Nippy was featured on Snoop's 2009 album Malice and Wonderland on the track Upside Down alongside Problem. And in what might surprise some people, Snoop revealed in 2022 that Nippy actually wrote 10 Toes Down for his 2016 album Kool-Aid, which included 3 verses penned by Nippy and sampled the 2002 movie Paid in Full. When Nippy was tragically killed in 2019, Snoop spoke at his memorial service at the Staples Center, describing their bond as one of peace advocates and shared spirits. He later released Nippy Blue, a tribute song mourning their shared history. Snoop also highlighted how Nip's death brought together gang members who hadn't spoken in decades, emphasizing Nip's impact on unity within the community. This public show of respect might explain why in 2020, Blacc Sam pulled up on Snoop with a care package from the Marathon Clothing, including the Uncle Sam OG strain. This gesture, which Snoop shared on Instagram with the caption, "My nephew Blacc Sam pulled up on me today," dropped off a package at the Marathon Clothing at Canarms 818, Uncle Sam TMC, suggested a friendly, almost familiar relationship at that time. So what changed? How do we go from care packages in 2020 to public disrespect in 2025? The answer might lie in the ongoing controversy surrounding Snoop in recent years. For Blacc Sam, who has dedicated himself to preserving this legacy, seeing Snoop seemingly compromise his values for a check might have been the final straw. But there's another critical piece to this puzzle that brings us back to where we started. Big U.as mentioned in the YouTube video description. Big U and his associates allegedly confronted Nippy over a track. Big U, whose real name is Eugene Henley, is a former gang leader who became a major figure in LA's music scene and community activism. He had connections to both Nippy and Snoop, but the nature of his confrontation with Nippy remains somewhat murky in public records. What is clear, however, is that Snoop has maintained a relationship with Big U even after this alleged confrontation with Nippy. For Blacc Sam, this ongoing association might be viewed as a direct disrespect to his brother's memory, similar to how Tupac viewed Snoop's relationships with East Coast figures as disloyal to the West Coast movement. The parallel is striking. Just as Tupac felt betrayed by Snoop's willingness to associate with those he considered enemies, Blacc Sam might feel the same way about Snoop's continued relationship with Big U. It's a pattern of behavior that, from the perspective of those who prioritize loyalty above all else, shows a troubling willingness to play both sides. There's also the matter of Nippy's intellectual property and legacy. As the permanent administrator of Nippy's estate, Sam has been careful about how his brother's image and music are used. Snoop's history of copyright issues, including lawsuits for posting content without permission, might raise concerns about how he would handle Nippy's legacy. All of these factors, the historical beef with Tupac, Snoop's political inconsistencies, his association with Big U, and his approach to intellectual property, create a perfect storm that explains why Blacc Sam might have lost respect for someone who was once family. This context makes the footage from the Marathon Burger opening all the more significant. When Blacc Sam stated that anyone not taking action against those disrespecting Nippy was unwelcome, he wasn't just making a general statement. He was drawing a line in the sand. And based on all the evidence we've covered, it seems that Snoop Dogg may have found himself on the wrong side of that line. So that's the historical beef that led to this moment, a complex web of loyalty, respect, and legacy that spans decades of West Coast hip-hop. But the story doesn't end there. The future of West Coast unity may depend on how this generational divide plays out. First, let's be real about something. This beef represents a generational divide in how loyalty is defined in hip-hop. For OGs like Tupac and those who carry his torch like Nippy and Blacc Sam, loyalty is absolute. You're either with us or against us, and there's no in-between. But Snoop has always moved differently, building bridges across regional divides and evolving with the times. Snoop's career has spanned decades, during which he's transformed from a gangster rapper to a mainstream cultural icon who appears in commercials with Martha Stewart. He's performed at the Olympics, starred in television shows, and become one of the most recognizable figures in global pop culture. His involvement in projects like directing videos for Nippy's Victory Lap album, particularly Last Time That I Checked, shows his commitment to creative control and preserving his brother's authentic vision. Unlike Snoop, Sam hasn't sought mainstream acceptance or crossed over into mainstream entertainment. This fundamental difference in approach creates a natural tension. Sam represents the purest approach to hip-hop, staying true to your roots, your community, and your principles no matter what. Snoop represents adaptation and evolution, changing with the times while still claiming a connection to where you came from. Both approaches have their merits, but they're fundamentally incompatible. And that's why this beef isn't likely to be resolved easily, if at all. Looking at the broader West Coast hip-hop scene, this tension between Blacc Sam and Snoop Dogg reflects larger divisions within the culture. The old guard, represented by figures like Snoop, Ice Cube, and E40, have all found ways to achieve mainstream success. Meanwhile, newer voices like the late Nippy, Roddy Ricch, and others have tried to maintain their independence and authenticity. Nippy's Proud to Pay campaign and the Neighborhood Nip Foundation represented a different model, one based on direct connection with fans, independence from major labels, and reinvestment in the community. It's a model that Blacc Sam continues to champion through ventures like Marathon Burger and the ongoing Marathon clothing brand. Protecting Nippy's legacy, maintaining control over his intellectual property, and ensuring that those who disrespected his brother don't benefit from association with the Marathon brand remain Blacc Sam's top priorities. As for Snoop, his response to this situation remains to be seen. He hasn't publicly addressed the footage or Blacc Sam's apparent loss of respect. Given his track record of avoiding direct confrontation, remember how he distanced himself from the East versus West beef in the 90s, it's possible that he'll simply ignore the situation rather than escalate it. But there's another factor to consider: the role of Big U in this whole scenario. As mentioned earlier, the confrontation between Big U and Nippy over a track seems to be at the heart of Blacc Sam's issues with Snoop. If Snoop were to distance himself from Big U, it might open the door to reconciliation with Sam. However, given the complex web of relationships in LA's hip-hop scene, such a move would come with its own consequences. There's also the question of who else might get involved in this beef. The West Coast hip-hop community is tight-knit, with many artists having relationships with both Blacc Sam and Snoop Dogg. Well, and what about Dr. Dre, Snoop's longtime collaborator and mentor? Dre has largely stayed above the fray in most hip-hop beefs, focusing on his business ventures and production work rather than getting involved in conflicts. But given his close relationship with Snoop and his status as a West Coast elder statesman, his perspective on this situation could be influential. Then there's the commercial aspect to consider. Blacc Sam has been building the Marathon brand into a significant business enterprise. The recent opening of Marathon Burger is just the latest example of how he's expanding Nip's entrepreneurial vision. A high-profile beef with Snoop Dogg could either help or hurt these business ventures depending on how the public perceives it. For Snoop, the stakes are different. He's already established as a global brand beyond music, with ventures in cannabis, wine, food products, and various endorsement deals. A beef with Blacc Sam might not significantly impact his bottom line, but it could affect his standing in the West Coast hip-hop community that formed the foundation of his career. Looking at the broader cultural impact, This beef highlights the ongoing importance of authenticity in hip-hop. By continuing this work, Blacc Sam is ensuring that these principles remain central to West Coast hip-hop's identity, even as artists like Snoop move in different directions. There's also a generational aspect to this conflict that shouldn't be overlooked. Snoop, now in his 50s, came up in a different era of hip-hop, one where regional identity was paramount, and beef between coasts could turn deadly. His evolution from gangster rapper to mainstream icon reflects how hip-hop itself has changed over the decades. Nippy, who was in his 30s when he passed, represented a different generation. One that grew up with the internet, witnessed the corporatization of hip-hop, and sought to create alternative models for success. Blacc Sam, carrying on his brother's legacy, embodies this generational perspective. So, in many ways, this beef isn't just about Blacc Sam and Snoop Dogg, it's about old school versus new school, adaptation versus purity, and competing visions for hip-hop's future. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Is reconciliation possible? Based on everything we've covered, it seems unlikely in the short term. The issues at play, from perceived disloyalty to Tupac's legacy, However, hip-hop has a long history of squashed beefs and unlikely reconciliations. Who would have thought that Nas and Jay-Z would eventually make peace after Ether and Takeover, or that Ice Cube would reunite with his former NWA groupmates after leaving the group over financial disputes? Time has a way of healing wounds, and shared respect for Nippy's legacy could eventually bring Blacc Sam and Snoop Dogg back to the same table. But for that to happen, both parties would need to be willing to meet halfway, and based on the current evidence, neither seems inclined to do so. In the meantime, this beef serves as a reminder of the complex dynamics within hip-hop culture and the ongoing tension between commercial success and street credibility. It's a tension that has existed since hip-hop's beginnings and shows no signs of disappearing So, where does all of this leave us? The beef between Blacc Sam and Snoop Dogg represents more than just a personal disagreement. It's a microcosm of the larger tensions within hip-hop culture. Loyalty versus evolution, underground credibility versus mainstream success, old school values versus new school business. In many ways, both Blacc Sam and Snoop Dogg are right in their positions. Sam is right to fiercely protect his brother's legacy and to demand respect for the values Nippy stood for. Snoop is right to evolve as an artist and business person, adapting to changing times while still paying homage to his roots. The conflict arises not because either is wrong, but because their visions for West Coast hip-hop have diverged in fundamental ways. What's certain is that both Blacc Sam and Snoop Dogg have made significant contributions to West Coast hip-hop, albeit in different ways. Sam through preserving and expanding upon Nip's entrepreneurial and community-focused legacy. Snoop through pioneering the gunk sound alongside Dr. Dre and bringing West Coast culture to global audiences. Whether they ever reconcile their differences or not, their impact on the culture is indelible. And perhaps that's the most important takeaway from this whole situation. That hip-hop is big enough to contain these contradictions and disagreements, these different visions and values. It's a culture built on both competition and community, on both staying true to your roots and pushing boundaries. In the end, the beef between Blacc Sam and Snoop Dogg isn't just about them. It's about us, about how we define authenticity, loyalty, and success in hip-hop. And that conversation will continue long after this particular conflict has faded from the headlines. And with that, we've come to the end of this deep dive. For more juicy content like this, smash that subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, and check out the card showing on your screen for more videos. Don't forget to comment why.